Hey there, I'm me, and I've been making videos on this channel for 5 years now. A milestone that really snuck up on me that I only happened to realize as I was going through my catalog of videos one day on the toilet. I really appreciate the fact that the channel can still, be a thing after that long. It simultaneously feels like I've had this channel for way longer, and also it feels like 5 years is a lot of time. Which, I mean, I guess it kinda is. Anyways, I normally like to do Q&As anyhow, but I guess there's some kind of theme to this one, which is always nice. And the theme of the background footage is TF2 MVM again, though I might spice it up a little bit with some other types of clips later on. And the music, as you can hear, is definitely going to start off as Pocket Tanks. I feel like the vibe doesn't completely fit my normal videos, but it's perfectly fine here, right? Anyways, I got the questions generally organized, but for this first part, I'm going to go over anything related to, the channel as a whole, just because that makes sense. First, Shabkhan asks what the biggest struggle in these 5 years has been, and how I've overcome it. I'd say consistency has probably been the biggest hurdle. It wasn't too bad back at the start when I had not only tons of ideas and motivation, but also there was just so much stuff yet to be covered. And then by, the halfway point, or rather towards the latter half of the DLC waves, is when consistency started to get pretty difficult, half to do with that motivation and half to do with the creativity. Now, whether or not I've overcome that is up to debate, I guess, as I don't have the most consistent upload schedule and it's certainly less frequent than it used to be, but at least getting 2 videos out a month for most months has been a pretty good challenge, and I think I've done at least that much. But yeah, the motivation has been a real obstacle. Related to that, actually, Tristan Rodart asks what has been motivating me for the past 5 years.
Money!
No, I'm kidding. Actually, no, I'm not entirely kidding. The fact that I've decided to do this as my main form of income has definitely been the most forward form of motivation I could have ever had. Some might think there's a certain level of creative bankruptcy to having money be any form of motivation, but I like to think I've tried to maintain a level of integrity despite the fact that this is my job. But it's not like I'm just uploading low-effort videos every other day or taking sponsorships from clear scams or AI programs or NFTs or that sort of thing, despite all the offers I've received. But obviously that job aspect isn't everything. Making videos, while sometimes tiring, can be really fulfilling once the whole process is over, and it never gets old to upload a video and see everyone's comments and feedback. Sometimes it's hard to visualize numbers on your screen as actual people, but once you start getting into that mindset and comprehending that more and more, it's really nice to just see so many people who just like your content, even if you're not necessarily changing lives. Oh, and speaking of money, Camdy Mail asks if I earn enough to have this as my career. I'm gonna make this my last money-related prompt since I don't want people to think everything is about money for me. But I can also see how someone who isn't a content creator themselves would be curious about that sort of thing. I won't give specifics, but basically with my current upload pace and amount of views I get, YouTube alone would not earn me enough to sustain a career now. It's nice money for sure, but not quite enough. And there's way too much inconsistency at my level, to where a video doing below average means essentially nothing earned. Really, without the sponsorships I've been getting, I would have already moved on to another job of some kind, and who knows what would have happened to the channel. With those sponsorships though, I have been able to keep this as my career, just barely. I'm not rich, you know. I may have a nice subscriber count, but the combination of relatively lower views with a slow upload pace, and it's not like I'm making 5 figures a month or anything crazy. You need to either be super active and or super popular for those kinds of numbers. I mean, if I lived with my parents and didn't have to pay rent or much of my groceries, it actually would be a lot better, but I'm mostly independent now. I've got a lot of bills to pay. But yes, at the moment, I'd say I just barely make enough for this to sustain me. Though it's so finicky that that's the main reason why I want to move on to a different career sometime soon-ish, and just treat YouTube as a hobby again, something I went over in my last Q&A. Actually, speaking of my last Q&A, Tanimations is back again this year to ask how my goals for 2023 have been. And I think referring to that Q&A is a good starting point. At the end of that video, I made a good list of goals I wanted for this year specifically. I mean, I really recommend watching that whole video if you're curious about me and my vision for the channel's future. There are some topics I won't cover here because they were gone over in that video and remain surprisingly consistent with my current views. So okay, as a retrospect, I said I wanted to get proficient enough in Japanese to be able to pass the JLPT N1 test. I took a free short practice test online sometime late this summer, and I just barely passed it. Literally exactly as many points as I needed to pass. Obviously, I don't want to pass by the skin of my teeth for the real test, especially since it requires a lot of travel and it costs $100 to try, I'm pretty sure. But it definitely makes me feel more confident that I'd be able to do well if I took the real thing with an extra year of studying. So yeah, surprisingly, the Japanese related goals I set for myself were absolutely a success, which is cool. My health goals had depended on what my blood tests looked like, and while I'm generally healthy, it was recommended that I lose weight for a variety of reasons. So this year I mostly focused on just weight loss with dieting and cardio, and not really any resistance training. Well, I say this year, but I was only really disciplined about it starting in the latter half, but hey, better late than never. And yeah, I think I made good progress, though I'm hoping 2024 is even more consistent. I also mentioned acoustic guitar, and admittedly I just kind of dropped that after a few months. I did get to a somewhat competent level, but definitely not really what I wanted. I'd like to get back into it to some extent, but I don't know. That whole type of thing is not the thing that I want to force too hard. It'll happen at some point with on and off activity, especially during winter when being outside sucks. So yeah, surprisingly 2023 was a great success all around. I didn't get any specific prompts about it this time around, but at the end of this video I'll go over my plans for 2024, just because I think it's interesting to have that sort of thing cataloged for my own sake, so I can look back on it. Moving on though, user-string of characters asks if I would consider doing a face reveal at a certain sub-goal. Bam, there I am. I post selfies on Twitter sometimes, so it's not really like I'm keeping it secret or anything. I just don't have any real reason to do that on here, you know? Like I don't have a really high quality webcam and I don't feel like investing in one. But yeah, now that I've lost 100 pounds compared to when I started this channel, no, I'm not being hyperbolic, I actually lost over 100 pounds. I'm definitely confident and comfortable enough with how I look that it doesn't really faze me. Next, Nothing But a Spider asks what I regret on my run as a YouTuber. Honestly, I think it's just kinda taking myself and my channel a bit too seriously? That might sound weird to anyone who's watched my content, as I was pretty goofy back then too, but behind the scenes I was really strict to myself about the type of content I released, whether or not I should take certain sponsorships, or any sponsorships really, I was not good about that back then, and the types of series I should experiment with, and even the types of jokes I could make. And this was all especially true after like the first year or so after things popped off. I had a lot of ideas for series I wanted to try, but I was scared of doing something new, so I never really experimented much. And I think that's just kind of a shame, not only because I've now seen that those experimentations can do super well, but also because they probably could have done even better back then when I had a much more active viewer base. Though in general I try not to gripe on the past since all that stuff's just already happened. And it having happened has let me learn a lot now. And for the most part, outside of some of the mistakes I've made, I am proud of my channel. Wazdaka asks what my end goal with YouTube is. It'd be nice to create my own country and wage war with neighboring countries. Devyun asks what the coolest opportunity I've gotten to do from YouTube has been. Honestly, even just talking to other YouTubers has been my favorite aspect, both in the Smash community and, weirdly enough, the TF2 community. I don't do too many collabs, but I really just like being able to chat with people, you know? Joining a competitive TF2 team with several TF2 YouTubers has probably been the biggest highlight in recent time. It's just a lot of fun. And Undersea Rexy asks about the type of games I like that don't usually appear on the channel. It's hard to answer because I've gotten good at featuring footage from games that I like in my videos in completely unnecessary, unrelated manners, because that's just my style, I don't know. So Stardew Valley has appeared, TF2 has appeared a lot, Zelda has appeared on and off and usually just gets talked about normally, like in context. Minecraft appears less frequently now, but still shows up. I guess with just the nature of Smash being a crossover of a lot of games and series, it means that I can talk about games in a way that's like not even unnatural. And I'm also just not really a gamer nowadays, admittedly. I mostly just play the same handful of things that I've always liked playing, and save any new experiences for like watching Let's Plays, which I can not only do while eating or resting my arms in bed, but is also just free, which is nice. And usually like when I have time to do things, at least during like spring, summer, fall, I like to spend that time outside in some way now. Alright, now moving on to the Smash Ultimate section. Minigo Vroom asked a three-part question involving spirits that are apparently being released in 2024, and how I feel that reflects on the future of Smash. I'm just gonna say, I don't think there's gonna be anything newer or bigger accompanying these spirits. I think Smash Ultimate is just done, it's finished. Anything else added will be incredibly minor, like spirits. Now, regarding whether or not there will be a new Smash game in general I feel like it's kind of an obvious answer. Yeah, there's gonna be a new Smash game eventually, the IP is just way too massive. Whether or not that new game will be led by Sakurai, or which playable characters it will have, or even when it'll get announced, I don't really know. Though I imagine anything that happens will be a good amount of time from now. I'm thinking a minimum of like 2 or 3 years, though I guess that depends on how the new Nintendo console stuff goes, or whether or not they decide to dip their toes into remaking old Smash games, which I imagine will take less time. But to be honest, that sort of speculation is something I've been thinking about doing a whole video dedicated about, so I think I'll just leave that there. Sandwich2 asks if I'd cover said hypothetical new Smash game a lot when that comes out. And obviously that depends on a lot of factors. The biggest one being when that releases. If we don't get a new Smash game till like, I don't know, 2027, who even knows where my channel will be by then? That's a bit past my future vision. But if it were to release relatively soon in some major turn of events, then yeah, I can definitely see myself at least giving it a shot. And whether or not it stays as a big focus depends on how interested I am in it, but assuming that it's not ultra far into the future, I'm definitely going to give it a shot. Michaelos asked if I plan to continue Smash Ultimate content for the next 5 years. I guess regardless of new games being released. And, probably not, no. I'm really hoping that I've transitioned into a new, more stable career in Japanese to English translation within 5 years, and like I said in my last Q&A, once that career change has been made, I'd like to treat my channel as something purely for my own entertainment, and I guess yours too, but like I'd like to do it for a lot more of myself. So in that case, while I might not completely throw Smash Ultimate away in the future, as long as the series doesn't get a new edition for a long time like I suspect, I'd probably try to spend more time on other, more general things. Alright, moving on to Japanese stuff since I've been talking about it quite a bit now. PG14 asks what my plans on random facts or translation tidbits for other games are. I'll focus on the latter series, translation tidbits, and say that I think it'd be really cool to do that for other games once the channel is no longer my main job. I keep repeating that, but it's important. Like, that's the main series I can see myself working on for a variety of things. I've already tried it 3 times now, and while my first one for Tears of the Kingdom popped off way harder than I ever could have anticipated, the follow-up video tanked so hard that it makes me wonder if it was just all a dream. And eventually I did one for Smash, and that did average. At the time it was below average, but I think that was just a low point in the channel in general, since other videos, primarily Smash Wiki videos, did around as well. This also includes the one that I uploaded right before this video. So it's kinda hard to imagine, right? There's clearly a precedent for those videos doing well, but that also seems like it'd be an outlier that only happened because Tears of the Kingdom was just new at the time. So I'm not sure how much I'll try it out for other games in 2024. I guess it just depends on how well the channel does in other areas and what kind of games get released. I do have enough content for another Tears of the Kingdom one that has a lot of interesting stuff to go over. The issue is just I've kinda lost motivation for Tears of the Kingdom because, alright, this is gonna be like a hot take in the middle of this whole Q&A, but I just don't really like the game that much. It's just kind of boring to me, you know. I don't really care about the whole open world stuff, but I'm not gonna get into that. Just know that there's still a possibility that there'll be a new translation tidbits video for Tears of the Kingdom that'll have a lot of interesting things, but that'll only happen once I get a little bit more interested again, and at the moment that's just not there. Next, Sunray asks if learning Japanese is as hard as everyone says or not. I don't have the best insight as I haven't learned a language that people consider easy for English natives, so it's hard to compare, but I definitely think it's harder than a lot of other languages you'd find people trying to learn. Any language with something like kanji automatically adds a pretty good hurdle, and the structure and culture is also just very different, so at the very least, yeah, it's definitely harder than some other options for English natives, like Spanish or French or German. But is it as difficult? I personally don't entirely think so. Think of it like this. All languages are complex and require a lot of time studying and immersing in order to get really good at them. I'm talking like better than just mumbling your way through the most bare bones conversation humanly possible. Like a level of fluency. I don't like the word fluency, but like you get what I'm saying. So in my mind, a language requiring 1 year of consistent studying and a language requiring 2 years of consistent studying doesn't really make much of a difference in difficulty, because either one requires the person to be disciplined and motivated enough to spend years studying something. You know, chances are if you can spend 1 year doing very efficient self-studying, you can probably squeeze out a second year, and so on. So it's in that sense that I feel like the difficulty gets exaggerated a bit. Like if you want to learn Japanese but are put off by the difficulty compared to other languages, no, don't be. Just learn it. It's going to be a whole process no matter what language you choose, so just pick one you're interested in. On the topic of motivation, the Sai Shyster, that's quite the name, asks for advice on curbing the lulls in motivation for studying. Obviously, to a certain extent, you have to decide that sort of thing yourself, as motivation is most effective when it comes from within, rather than from some faceless voice on your computer screen. That being said, I do have a few ideas that might help. For one, setting concrete but reasonable goals is very important. Don't just start with, I want to be fluent, and have that be your only thing. Look into what the process of studying actually looks like and form ideas on how you want to progress. I want to learn 100 words this month, or I want to get proficient with writing kana. The exact goals will obviously depend on what you're looking to get out of all of this and what level you're at, but having goals that aren't abstract and are actually attainable, like kinda soonish, can really help maintain motivation in having a good reward system. And also just remember, sometimes you need a break. I've taken plenty of breaks. There's always the chance that your lack of motivation is telling you either that you're burning out, or that the specific methodology you're going at is just ineffective for you. Taking some time off and just mulling over the process can sometimes be enough, and if it's not, trying a new approach might also help out. It's hard to give specific advice when I don't know your specific scenario, and I really do think having some sort of internal drive is just important for any of these types of things, but these are just some ideas. Similarly, Dooley Time asked for advice on where to start learning Japanese, to take it seriously. This is another topic I'm tempted to make a video about someday, but my best advice for someone who's nearly a beginner at least is to build up a good foundation. This is always the biggest hurdle for a language, especially one like Japanese where there's technically more foundations you need to learn. To start off, learn kana, both hiragana and katakana simultaneously, since doing so makes it easier in my opinion. You can learn the language to some extent while delaying this step, but my completely honest take is that if you can't be bothered to learn the basic writing system, you might not be in a position to learn a language yet. Reminder that kana is a phonetic system, not the complicated mess that is kanji, so there's just a table of things to remember instead of a book of things to remember. After that, I recommend learning foundational vocabulary, kanji, and grammar. There are sources out there for vocabulary decks that include 1,000 or so of the most common words in the language, and they usually come with example sentences per flashcard that can double down as helping you learn sentence structure and other words. Having flashcards that have example sentences is just really good, so I definitely recommend that, as well as the flashcard app called Anki. For kanji, I think there's something similar. I just used a book that was based around memorizing all of the kanji, but I think that any source that, again, focuses on the most common ones can be helpful. And grammar was a bit more of a free-for-all for me. I learned it in a very scattered manner, but I think that's generally okay. Read a lot of sentences, like the sentences from the flashcards earlier. Ask yourself a lot of questions like, why does this say like this, or what does this mean? And then look them up and learn. Reading basic grammar books to help you get started can be a lot of help too. I'm probably not going to go much more in depth like I kind of want to, because I also want to keep this video simple and fun and not 10 hours long, so I'll leave that there. Just focus on some aspect of the foundations for the language, be it vocab, grammar, the writing system, and just kind of keep at it. Next, Anderson Crush asks how I intend to find work in Japanese. I still need to look into this myself. As silly as it sounds, I actually haven't had to go job hunting, like, ever, since I got this YouTube career kind of randomly while I was in college, so I've never had the need to. But my basic idea right now is to just do things to get myself a reasonable resume, like having some certificates to prove my proficiency, and then just start sending out applications and hoping for the best. I need to look into how freelance translation really works, but I also don't see myself having any success without even a basic resume, as right now I have practically nothing to offer. Next, Shanks asked me if I have any Japanese friends and what I find most fun about learning Japanese. And they also asked me to answer in Japanese myself, so pardon my poor speaking skills, I haven't practiced this specific area much. 日本人の友達はいないんですが、知り合いならいますよ。でもね、あまり他人との会話をする経験が少なくて、ちょっと緊張しますよね。日本語の勉強の一番楽しいところということなら多分ですね。幼い頃でやってたゲームを新しい視線でやれることが一番好きなとことは思っています。まあ普通にゲームをするのが勉強ってことが非常にいい点ですよね。Alright, moving on briefly to music. Mathtron asks about music uploads on my channel. Oh man, I really haven't been doing well in that department, huh? Yeah, I guess this just happened to be even less of a focus as I've adopted other hobbies, like fishing. I really do like the idea of making music at least occasionally just for fun, but I guess it's just not the highest priority. Like, it's been kind of a low priority for a while now, but I guess it's just kind of staying there rather than gradually going up like I figured, but oh well, that's just how it works sometimes. So no promises as usual, but I appreciate that you're interested in it. If I ever get that itch again, it'll be uploaded onto the channel first thing. Next, Tourbit asks what my plans are on working on video game soundtracks. In a sense, it's that basic idea that I've had in my mind while composing, you know, like having music for a game, but the reality is that I don't think I'd ever do that. At least not anytime soon, but like, I really don't think I would. That used to be the career I wanted for myself, but once I realized how things really work in the real world, I quickly decided that that's not what I want from music in my life. So just keeping it as a hobby that I do whenever I want for whatever reason that I want has probably been the decision that's allowed it to stay in my future at all. Next, Uncle Lane asks if there's any genres or artists that I listen to that my friends probably wouldn't expect. I think most of my friends, as well as probably most of y'all, would probably expect me to just listen to video game music. which I do a lot. It's most of what I listen to. I have a whole rant on the categorization of video game music as a genre that I don't want to get into. But yeah, that's what they would expect. So I imagine they probably would expect that I love bands like Metallica, or Rush, or Van Halen, some metal, some rock, whatever genres or subgenres there are, I don't even know. Just a combination of songs my brother and father liked that I heard as a kid, and songs that I was exposed to playing games like Guitar Hero when growing up. I don't really keep up with that kind of stuff like a lot of people do, like I don't listen to them a ton, and I definitely don't like listen to whole albums, but there's definitely still a handful of pieces I still really like, and I do think I'd like to get more exposed in the future, because as a kid I think that was like 70% of the music I listened to, and it just sort of gradually kept getting more and more replaced by video game music, the less, I guess, ashamed I got of that. Which is kind of sad in retrospect, isn't it? And, oh god, what the hell's the name? That's a cheap, I'm gonna go with that. Asked how I learned to make music. It was basically just all self-taught. I took piano lessons for a while, but I was so intrinsically motivated that I taught myself a lot of that too. You know, looked into my own songs to play, and I rarely practiced the ones that she gave me to play. And then after that is when I finally got FL Studio, which mostly consisted of me just playing around with it, making simple, lame songs, watching tutorials about music theory and stuff, and just repeating that until here we are. Really, truly an informal manner, but I think it still worked out fine enough. And it's just one of the many examples in my life about how you don't need to go to school to learn something. Next, user-string of numbers, but different from the last one, asks what game is playing in the background right now. It's TF2. You'd know that if you were paying attention at the start. But sure, let's talk about TF2 prompts now. Danny asks who my favorite TF2 character is. It's Soldier, and it's not even close. He's very fun to play, and he's also very cute. Taster screams and yells at me to upload more TF2 videos. I'm sorry! This is my truest failure. I have so many clips and would enjoy making so many more videos, but man, it just doesn't happen. I'd like for it to happen at least a few times in 2024, but at this rate, I feel like anything I say is worthless because I'm terrible at keeping promises for that channel, so, yeah, well, we'll just see. Knight the Might asked my opinions on the Beggar's Bazooka. I think it's a really cool one that's great for sack plays and opens up some really awesome jumps, and the fact that you can just sort of keep shooting forever is almost really broken. But I'm still not great at those fancy rocket jumps, and the rocket deviation makes me sad. I like to get better with it, and it's also just objectively broken and less skill intensive in MVM, which is fun. But at the moment I still used most of the other rocket launchers more, and that includes the airstrike. Sorry. Rattlehead asked my favorite unofficial subclass in TF2, Penis Scout. Dr. Frenno asked why I put TF2 footage at the end of my Smash videos. That's a great question. B asks how I feel about the entry to TF2 content, and also mentions there's a little shared interest between the TF2 community and the Smash community. I actually completely disagree. I mean, look at me. I've primarily just uploaded Smash videos onto here, and yet I get recognized in TF2 most times that I play. Like, these two screenshots I'm showing right now happened the day after I wrote this script, the same day. The same session, actually. And on top of that, I've been reached out to by several TF2 content creators for various reasons, like being a part of the most recent Seasonal Lander. And honestly, in so many TF2 videos, I see references to competitive Smash just a lot. I'm not really the biggest YouTuber, especially not in the TF2 sphere, and yet I've noticed so much overlap between the two communities. It's just super interesting. You could either chalk it up to Smash being just really big overall, or perhaps it's just that TF2 being kind of an old internet content thing overlaps with people who are also in Melee, which is kind of also like that. I don't really know, but I definitely disagree that there's little shared interest. Though at the end of the day, they are still two different games, so making content on one and then on the other is going to be a big leap no matter how much shared interest there is. That's just kind of the nature of YouTube. And that's also one of the reasons why I even made a separate channel for TF2. I mean, the biggest reason was because those videos are kind of low effort. You know, they're just clip compilations. Whereas I like main channel stuff to have more editing nowadays and like some kind of voiceover. Maybe sometime in the future I'll try a main channel TF2 video of some kind. Definitely not random facts. No, that's happened for TF2 and it's happening from channels who are a lot better than me. I just have no stock in that form of content for that game. It'd either be some random video essay about some topic, or maybe I'll just stop caring and upload clip compilations onto this main channel. I don't know. Okay, let's go to random game stuff then. First, Joshi asked for my top 3 video games. You know me, I have a hard time deciding, so today I'm gonna be different and just choose specific games in a specific order that I think have the most effect on me, and will probably change in like a month or so. Number 3 is I guess I'll just put TF2 here. The game frustrates me and I hate it, but I love playing it and it's awesome, and competitive TF2 has been fun. Number 2 is Animal Crossing City Folk, nostalgia reasons primarily. And number 1 is Zelda Majora's Mask. Peak fiction. Even if I don't love playing it at certain parts, it's still supreme kino, and other buzzwords. Some questions about my favorite Mario Kart track. I don't play the game a lot, but I do enjoy it. And I'd say one of my favorite tracks, in terms of aesthetics alone at least, might be Neo Bowser City. Either that or Boo Lake, which I was really surprised and impressed by. And in terms of the whole package, my favorites... Oh, this one's actually kind of hard. Maybe Maple Treeway? I feel like my favorite in the series might have been Airship Fortress from Mario Kart DS, but it's also been so long that it's kind of hard to say. Was really hoping for that to have been one of the DLC tracks, but oh well. Also had a few questions on my favorite Pokemon. I love fish Pokemon, which shouldn't be surprising, but for picking a specific favorite, Serperior might hold the most special value for me, as it was my first shiny Pokemon and the first one I actually tried to make like a good loadout for, like competitively, kinda, so it holds a special place in my heart. Though you'd already know all that if you watched my cameo in part 1 of Mockrock's video where he ranks the viability of every single Pokemon coming to Smash as a fighter. Hint hint. And Marlon asked what my favorite horror game is. Five Nights at Freddy's. But no, really, I mostly just watch people play horror games since I'm a big baby. But I think Doki Doki Literature Club is probably my favorite. I don't know, it doesn't fully feel right to call it a horror game, maybe? I mean, I guess it is, but I don't know if it's my favorite for its horror elements or what. So I will stick with DDLC, a game I did actually play myself. But I would also like to mention PT, which I still find to be one of the best executions of horror I've ever seen in a while. Not that I've played it personally, I would die trying. But I guess for those types of things, you don't really need to play it yourself, right? I don't care. Okay, now the rest of the questions are just really random, so I'm going to end off with all of these. First, I was asked if I have any pets. Admittedly, I thought about removing this section, but I think I'll keep it in. Well, I don't personally own any pets. The ones from my childhood are still at my parents' house. That includes Shadow, who's a cute little man, Audrey, who's a chunky princess, and Max, who is a very old man, recently turning 15, and at the time of editing this video had to be put to sleep due to a tumor in his throat. I don't want anything too heavy in this video, but I did want to at least remember him like this. He was a good, precious cat, and I'll miss him. This was a voiceover after the fact, so that's why there might be some tone shift moving into this next section. But I just felt like I didn't want to try and forget about it here, so please allow me this little section in my little video. Thank you. Spider Dude asked what the best fish I caught is. In terms of size, this pike I caught is pretty awesome. These guys look so cool, I really like them. And this isn't even that big of a pike, it's actually kind of small. But in terms of importance to me, any of the brown trout I caught would fit here, since learning how to fish in shallow, fast-moving rivers was kind of a journey for me. So I'd say either my first ever brown trout, or my most recent one, which was the last fish of the year. And also probably one of my biggest trout. It's so cute, I love them all. Next, True Potato King asked what my favorite season and seasonal scent is. Answer to both is summer. My whole life is summer. I want it to be summery every single day forever. Now, clarification, I live pretty far north, so a summer here is more like a spring really down south. You know, like consistent high 70s, low 80s, that area. But regardless, a big goal of mine once I get a more stable form of income is to move down farther south so I can be somewhere with a more consistent summery climate. Because right now, I just hate the winter, even if it hasn't been that cold lately, thanks to climate change. Next, Matthew asks why we're born to suffer and die. In my opinion, I think we're actually born to thrive and live, since suffering is temporary and you only die once. Maybe twice for some people. Whereas you live every day, so I like to pay attention to those things more. Rock asks if I ever tried pickle-flavored cotton candy. I haven't. However, there is this new trend of freeze-dried candies going around, and one of the ones that I tried was a Skittle with dill pickle seasoning around it. While it wasn't as bad as I would have expected, it certainly wasn't something I was the most thrilled to eat. Like, it was cool to try, but it was kind of off-putting. Like, it was not bad because I do like dill pickle, but I don't know, it made me feel weird. So I imagine pickle-flavored cotton candy would probably be the same. Next person, LOL, asks, why do we have to die? You guys good? You guys okay? We die because that's the ebb and flow of life, so it's better to think about what you have rather than what you'll lose, since the alternative is crippling fear and dread, and that would prevent you from really appreciating life, and in my eyes that's essentially a different but equally as heavy form of death, one that I can prevent. Next, Eminous Boo asks if I can do a backflip. I don't know if this is a question or a request, but if I tried to do a backflip, I would die. Bacon Guy asks what my favorite anime is. One Piece. It's not even close. Also, Pretzel Man asks what my favorite arc is, and also some other questions. My favorite arc is probably either Skypiea, Impel Down, or Wano Kuni. Hard to choose. Favorite character is Luffy, by far. I love that guy. I've caught up completely to the anime and the manga now. I primarily watched the anime, but read the manga after I caught up, in order to read, even more. And Enkitsar asks if I'd rather be able to summon gravel that disappears after 8 seconds, or revive bugs. On one hand, disappearing gravel would be great for magic tricks and would probably make for a good weapon, but on the other hand, reviving bugs means I can help all the dead butterflies I see in my walks, so I think I'll choose that one. Realliance asks if I can do a front flip. I might not die trying to do that one, but I would probably still hurt myself. Also, I love the implication that the backflip and frontflip questions were asked by the same person using alt accounts, since the numbers in their names are the same, just shuffled around. YouTube Q&As are crazy. Professor Games asked what the meaning of life is. Finding the meaning of life is one of the greatest journeys life has to offer, so me telling you would take away your meaning, and that's basically the same as manslaughter, so I think I'll refrain from answering. And lastly, Dropfish asks if I like soup. Yeah, soup is awesome. I love soup. It's just so easy to make. You just throw things in a pot and bam, it's delicious, and you get so much nutrients out of everything you're cooking with. Ugh, soup is cool. Alright, that's all the questions, and just to top things off on my own, my goals for 2024 are the following. Working towards getting an actual decent resume for Japanese translation work, continue studying Japanese and getting even more proficient, stay healthier, getting my weight below 200 and ideally keeping it there, doing a lot more fishing and catching some of the species I want, going outside a lot more often, which I got really good at the latter half of this year, and just keeping the channel around with some success for another year. Pretty simple. So wish me luck, and I also wish all of you the best on your own journeys for 2024, and hope you made enough good memories during 2023. Anyways, with all that, I'd like to thank my patrons Rain, Soul700, Burbo, Spider Jew, and everyone else for the massive support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all next year.